Hey everyone, and welcome to Chef AJ Live. I'm your host, Chef AJ, and this is where I introduce you to amazing people like you who are doing great things in the world that I think you should know about. Well, today is day 2 of Mastering Diabetes Week, and my guest is Robby Barbaro. He is the co-founder of the Mastering Diabetes program, as well as the co-author of the New York Times best-selling book by the same name, Mastering Diabetes. And he's going to continue the conversation that Cyrus started yesterday about this idea that if you're diabetic, you can't eat carbs. And he's specifically going to talk about how he can, as somebody living with type 1 diabetes, not only eat fruit, the whole fruit and nothing but the whole fruit, but quite a bit of it. Please welcome Robby to the show. I love you guys so much.
Chef AJ, thank you so much for having us. This whole week is a lot of fun. We have a bunch of amazing team members coming on, so it's an honor to be here. And we have a lot to talk about today.
Yeah, I can't wait because, I was saying to Cyrus yesterday that I resonate so much with you guys because we kind of eat the same diet. I'm not diabetic, but it's like everything you teach is like, I just support you so much. When people have diabetes, I'm like, go to them. And you're living proof that you can eat carbs and manage diabetes.
That's exactly right. Well, because you're doing the same diet that we do, you are not going to develop diabetes, which is pretty beautiful thing when you think about it, to have that confidence that, you know what, that chronic condition that's affecting millions upon millions of people, it's not going to happen to you, Chef AJ. And everybody listening, if you're living with type 2 diabetes, pre-diabetes, you can reverse that in the vast majority of cases. If you're living with type 1 diabetes like myself, or type 1.5 diabetes, we can put you in the driver's seat of your diabetes health, reduce your long-term chronic disease risk, and make sure that your blood glucose control, your A1C, your quality of life is beautiful right now. So like you said, Chef AJ, I've been living with type 1 diabetes since I was 12. That's when I was diagnosed. So that's over 20 years ago now. And my older brother was actually also diagnosed with type 1 diabetes prior to me. So I basically diagnosed myself. I told my mom I'm thirsty all the time. I'm going to the bathroom all the time. I think I have diabetes. She said, no, don't be silly. Don't be silly. I'm like, okay. A couple of weeks go by. She's out of town. She calls in and said, how are things going? I said, Mom, I couldn't sleep last night. I was cramping. She said, okay, go upstairs, use your brother's blood glucose meter and test yourself. And I was well over 400. You're supposed to be somewhere between 70 and 120. My brother said right then and there, you have type 1 diabetes, pack your bag. You're going to be in the hospital for a few nights. So that was my original diagnosis. And I remember my parents coming back from their trip and my dad just saying, look, it's an inconvenience. You can still live the life that you want to live and you can still accomplish all your dreams and your goals. So that was kind of the approach that we had. And I was following the standard American diet at the time. My parents wanted to make sure we had the best medical care. So we went to the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota. I had an endocrinologist, a nutritionist, a psychologist. Nobody ever said anything about maximizing insulin sensitivity. Nobody said anything about what I could do to reduce my long-term chronic disease risk living with diabetes. And so I went on my merry way and continued to follow the standard American diet. They literally, their only focus was just feel normal. We want you to eat what everybody else eats, just inject insulin. And it was the standard food pyramid. They literally were like, you know what, just have a fruit for dinner. So my mom would feed me mandarin oranges in a can with a bunch of high fructose corn syrup. And that was my fruit at dinner. So that was what we did. And I developed cystic acne. I developed plantar fasciitis. I had chronic allergies. So I would take Nasonex, Claritin D, still get sick all the time. And it was quite frustrating. So long story short, I tried a bunch of different things. I tried the Weston A. Price Foundation diet. I ended up trying a plant-based ketogenic diet, learning from Gabriel Cousins and Kurt Tyson. And some people might know that crew. Again, like all these things I've tried, all these people in this world, like I love everybody. I respect everybody. And it was all a stepping stone on my journey. And I learned a lot. But it wasn't until I found out about a low-fat, plant-based whole food diet that my diabetes health really turned around and I was in full control. So when I switched from a plant-based ketogenic diet to a low-fat, plant-based whole food diet, my insulin sensitivity improved by 900%. So any form of a ketogenic diet, whether it's plant-based, whether it's animal-based or low carb in general, you're eating yourself into a state of insulin resistance. You're eating yourself into a state of glucose intolerance. And that's not a place you want to be when it comes to short-term and long-term health. So I switched my diet. I started eating lots of fruits, lots of vegetables. My skin clears up, goes away. I no longer take any allergy medications. I don't get sick. I feel amazing. And my blood glucose control is, I mean, look, Chef AJ, I don't want to be like cocky or something here, but like, it's quite good. Okay. If you're living with type 1 diabetes, okay, and you wear a continuous glucose monitor, you know how difficult it is to have a time in range above 90%. So a time in range, this is a new thing that you're going to be glad you heard here on Chef AJ Live first. Okay. Time in range is a new metric that you're going to hear more and more about. And pretty soon, time in range will be known as a more important number than A1C. And the only way you can have a time in range data is if you're wearing a continuous glucose monitor. So those are becoming more and more popular. That's could be a Dexcom G6, could be a Freestyle Libre. There's some other companies out there. There are some mainstream companies that are making these popular in the biohacking community, people who are wearing it that don't have diabetes. But this device monitors your blood glucose level all day, every day. Every 5 minutes, I get a new reading on my phone, on my Apple Watch. I just looked right now. I'm sitting at 104. Good place to be during an interview. So this data tells you what is your blood glucose control all day in between meals, after meals, while you're sleeping. And so most people living with type 1 diabetes are rough around like 70%-ish. Okay. I'm at 90%. I have an A1C of 5.3%. So that's in the non-diabetic range. But the point is, I don't have a low A1C because I'm having low blood glucose readings all the time. Some people have bad blood glucose control, Chef AJ. They're going up, they're going down, they're going up, they're going down. And you can still have a pretty decent A1C because you have so many lows to balance out those highs. That's not why I have an excellent A1C. So what we're here to talk about today is why the Mastering Diabetes method and focusing on fruit can help you get more stable blood glucose readings. I know that's hard for people to believe. It's like, wait a minute, you're going to eat all this fruit. You're going to eat like mangoes and bananas and pears, and that's going to make my blood glucose more stable. Are you kidding me? And that's the truth. So it's not just me. We're working with thousands of people through our coaching program, and we're seeing these results consistently. I also didn't make this up. This research goes back to the 1920s, Chef AJ, the 1920s. Okay. So just so people know, the air conditioning, I'm living in Miami Beach right now. The air conditioning is broken. So if I'm sweating bullets, that's why. Okay. But I'm excited to be here, and I can't see any questions. So if there's questions coming in.
Oh, no, I see a lot of questions, but I first wanted to know the trajectory, because you said when you first were diagnosed at the age of 20, they basically, 12, excuse me, for 20 years, it was the age of 20. That's pretty young. Like, were you devastated, or were you like, my brother has it, he seems to be doing okay, I'll just roll with it?
So I think I was lucky. I was lucky in the sense that, yes, I had seen my brother live with it. My parents had already dealt with it, because oftentimes when it first happens, the parents kind of freak out. There's a little bit of anxiety that's being passed along from the parents in general, being worried and scared and like waking their kid up in the middle of the night because they're afraid that they might pass out. Like, there's a lot of fear that comes into it. I didn't have to deal with that. So I kind of got handed a little bit like a silver platter of like how to live with this with grace, and just understand that it's actually not that big of a deal once you get your handle on it. So it didn't crush me at the time. And I'm lucky. I know that's not the same story for everybody. So I got blessed in that regard. And now in hindsight, Cyrus and I both believe this is a gigantic blessing, and you can choose to look at it that way. No matter how bad it's been for you in the past, no matter how big of a struggle it's been, whether it's type 1 diabetes, whether it's a cancer diagnosis, a heart disease, whatever you're getting dealt, whatever cards you've been dealt with, you can choose to say, okay, that's it. That's the reality of the situation. And now I'm going to use this to catapult me into the best health I can possibly accomplish. And so, Cyrus and I say, look, if we weren't diagnosed, who knows what our health would be? Who knows what other conditions we would be developing? Teenagers now, heart disease is setting in teens. Okay. So basically the number one killer of people living with all types of diabetes is heart disease, Chef AJ. You know that. And so it's a blessing in disguise, and I've lived a better life because of it.
So this was about the year 2000, right?
That's
And
exactly right.
you said that they just basically said your mother should feed you what she wanted to, but just to inject insulin. So you weren't exposed to what a lot of people are when they become diabetic, which is the low carb diet. They didn't mention that to you at the time.
So at the time, the Mayo Clinic was not advising me to go follow some specifically very low carbohydrate diet. They were much more of just, standard American, the food pyramid, eat everybody, eat all the foods in each category, and do your best to just manage. That was their approach.
Wow. Did you ever end up trying like a low carb animal-based diet?
So I did the Weston A. Price Foundation. And when I followed that, that was quite low carb. And we're eating a lot of grass-fed meat there. I would drink raw milk. I literally went to the market and bought milk for cats because you couldn't sell raw milk to humans at the time. I don't know if you still can sell it to humans or not, but I did that. So I followed that program. And then I also did a very low carbohydrate diet when I followed the Gabriel Cousens phase 1 program. It's no fruit. You're eating lots of greens, zero fruit.
What do you eat? I always wonder when people do a low carb vegan diet, what are they eating?
Okay, so that's a good question. There's different versions of that. Okay, so the one that I did was, specifically Gabriel Cousens. Again, like bless the man, he's still out there doing his work and trying to help people. And I really believe all these different teachers in this whole field of health and wellness, where everybody's doing the best they can. They're being sincere and trying to help. And I know he's in that category. So, but basically that program is zero fruit. You're going to get, they want you to have a lot of greens. So a lot of lettuce and celery and kale and chard and stuff like that. And then a lot of nuts, avocados, oils were okay. So I remember taking celery and dipping it in almond butter. I remember taking cashews and putting them in the dehydrator, and they tasted better when they came out of the dehydrator, as if they weren't dry enough. But I remember doing that. And that diet was no more than 30 grams of net carbohydrate. But because it's a plant-based version, you can have more like 70, 80, 90 grams of total carbohydrate because a lot of that's fiber. So, look, I'm not recommending a ketogenic diet in any way, shape, or form. But if you had to do one, it'd be better to do a plant-based version. You'd get a lot more nutrients. You get a lot more fiber.
It doesn't sound very satisfying, though.
The volume is so low that's exactly right. It's not satisfying. It's not satisfying, and you likely get hungry, and you're really craving. You start craving potatoes. You start craving fruit. Like you really want some carbohydrate, and that's what happens. And a lot of people, they can't stick with it very long. That's why the approach we're talking about here, focusing on calorie density and truly satisfying foods, which, Barbaro's work. You talk about that all the time. Okay. Water plus fiber is bulk. And that's what we're looking for. Plus beautiful carbohydrate rich foods. You need some glucose. And that's how, we maintain this for so long, Chef AJ.
Well, that's the thing, because if somebody truly likes eating that way, then let them. But I just don't see how somebody could sustain a low carb diet, whether it's plant-based or not, long term, right? Because that's our fuel is carbohydrate, complex carbohydrate.
So, that's what we're talking about at Mastering Diabetes. We are here to present that option. Like you just said, if somebody wants to do that, go ahead. We're not here to argue with people or say you're wrong or something like that. We're just here to make it very clear. If you want to achieve all the same things that people are proclaiming you're going to achieve on a ketogenic diet, you want to achieve weight loss, you want to lower your A1C, you want to get off diabetes medications, you want to get off blood pressure medications, you want to lower your cholesterol, you want to reduce your risk of cancer, reduce your risk of heart disease, reduce your risk of Alzheimer's disease, all these benefits. If you want to accomplish that, you can eat delicious carbohydrate-rich foods to your heart's content and still accomplish that, as long as you know to do that in a low-fat environment and to focus on whole foods. And when you get that guidance and that clarity, and you have a clear system, which is what we put in our book with a bunch of recipes, then you can succeed. And the success comes in quite quickly, which is one of our favorite aspects of working with people who are living with diabetes. Blood glucose control changes rapidly. It's one of the biggest reasons why diabetes is so confusing. It's because you have the ability to self-monitor your blood glucose readings. Okay. So if you couldn't self-monitor your blood glucose readings, you wouldn't necessarily be so confused about, okay, well, if I stop eating carbohydrates and then I test myself, my blood glucose readings tend to come down. And then if I eat a carbohydrate rich meal, I test myself, oh, I see my meter says 200. Well, isn't the problem the bananas I just ate? It wasn't the potatoes' fault. And they see that number, and without any education of why that happened, which I believe Cyrus covered yesterday in day 1 of Mastering Diabetes Week. But if you don't have that understanding that it's insulin resistance, which is caused by the excess dietary fat you're consuming prior to that meal, that carbohydrate rich meal, if you don't understand that that is the cause of your blood glucose fluctuations, then it's confusing. So we teach everybody that, and then we give you the knowledge, and you start to see your fat, as you reduce your fat intake and your carbohydrate content from whole foods is increased, your blood glucose control improves, and that starts to give you the momentum to keep on going.
When did you switch to the diet that you're eating today after you had tried the, I guess it's the keto version?
Yeah,
of the plant-based
it was
diet?
December of 2006.
Did you hear about it from Dr. Doug Graham? Is that how you first heard about it?
That's exactly right. So Cyrus was one of the testimonials in Dr. Graham's book, the 80-10-10 diet. So that was cool. I was like, oh, wow, there's this other guy living with type 1 diabetes. He's getting good results as well. Let me jump into this. So I did a consultation with Dr. Doug Graham. One of the best decisions I ever made in my life. I signed up for online coaching with him. We worked together for 3 months. For 90 days straight, I emailed him every single day. He emailed me back every single day. And I learned how to follow a low-fat, plant-based whole food diet. And that is when my insulin sensitivity went through the roof. I could not believe how much of a reduction I saw in my need for insulin compared to the amount of carbohydrates I was consuming. So now I'm eating over 700 grams of carbohydrate per day and injecting a physiologically normal amount of insulin. So a healthy human pancreas is going to secrete somewhere between 25 and 50 units of insulin per day. It's going to depend on male, female, your height, your weight, your age, stuff like that. But it's going to be in that range. And I'm injecting about 27 units of insulin per day, eating well over 700 grams of carbohydrate. Now, there's published research on people following a ketogenic diet who eat 30 grams of carbohydrate per day and inject 30 units of insulin per day. That is a dramatic difference in insulin sensitivity compared to what we're doing here at Mastering Diabetes with that low-fat, plant-based whole food diet.
Wow. So you personally do it, I guess you would call it like the raw version or maybe a fruitarian version. But if somebody wanted to eat cooked food, they could still do this, right?
Absolutely. So I personally follow what you could call a fruit-based diet. If you want to give it a name, I don't really use that very often. I just say low-fat, plant-based whole food diet, because that diet, what that describes is our green light, yellow light, red light food system. Green light foods are fruits, starchy vegetables, legumes, intact whole grains, non-starchy vegetables, leafy greens, herbs and spices, and mushrooms. Okay. So those are the foods that we encourage you to eat in abundance. Just like you teach, Chef AJ, you're teaching that anything that has a calorie density of 600 or above, that if you're below that, eat, enjoy. Don't think about how much you're consuming. Our guidelines are pretty much the same. Okay. So in this case, you eat any of those foods. So if let's just say you chose to focus mainly on fruit, okay, then your diet would be higher in fruit. Maybe you don't like fruit. Maybe you want to have zero fruit, but you want to focus on the potatoes and the beans and some intact whole grains. Go to town. Like, it's completely up to you. You get to choose. Look to include some variety. Make sure you're having plenty of greens, plenty of non-starchy vegetables, and you're going to see your insulin sensitivity skyrocket. It's all about making sure those yellow light and red light foods are monitored closely, and you're consuming, smaller amounts of the yellow light foods and trying to limit or avoid the red light foods.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, Richard says, how do we change the mindset about healthy carbs? It's so ingrained in people's minds that carbs are bad, and I get frustrated hearing those comments. I'm constantly reminding people that refined carbs are what's to be avoided. It seems like the media and everybody pushes keto and misinformation about diabetes.
Yeah, we're dealing with that every day, Chef AJ, and to a certain extent, it's job security, right? This was funny to talk about. I think the best, I mean, how do you do that? I think the best thing we can do is continue leading by example. So people love hearing stories. People love seeing examples. And when you're a shining example yourself, you're looking fit, you're looking trim, you either reverse your diabetes, you're making sure you're not going to get it. Your A1C is wonderful. Leading by example, that's the best way to go. And then if you wanted to, you could start sharing peer-reviewed research. And when you start digging into the research, it becomes very, very clear. It's mind-boggling how clear the research is, particularly on fruit consumption and diabetes risk, how clear that research is. Yet the public is somehow confused and think they have to limit their fruit consumption. I mean, there was a meta-analysis that included 9 prospective studies. There are over 400,000 participants, and about 27,000 of them were living with type 2 diabetes. And this whole study was looking at the association between fruit and the risk of type 2 diabetes, okay? And they found out that individuals who ate the largest amount of fruit had a reduced risk of type 2 diabetes compared to those who had the least amount of fruit in their diet. Researchers also found that eating a minimum of 200 grams of fruit per day was associated with a 13% reduced risk of developing type 2 diabetes. So this means eating as little as 1 serving of fruit, such as an apple or a cup of berries per day, is associated with less incidence of type 2 diabetes. Now, of course, we know, Chef AJ, that it's going to take a lot more than that, but this is the research. Okay, this is the highest quality peer-reviewed research you can look at, and it's study after study after study. There was another meta-analysis investigating the association between the intake of fruits and vegetables and their fiber. Okay, they wanted to determine whether fruit, vegetables, or just fiber intake is associated with a reduced risk of type 2 diabetes. So the researchers found a total of 23 articles that they went and looked at. And what they found is that increased consumption of fruit, especially berries, is associated with the lowest risk of developing type 2 diabetes. Now, of course, they found out that the people who ate lots of fruit and vegetables with the fiber had the lowest risk of developing type 2 diabetes compared to people who did not eat much fiber coming from fruits and vegetables. And we could talk about research all day, Chef AJ. So if anybody wants to, like the question was asking, like, how do we stop this confusion? One thing you can do is just ask somebody, do you have a research paper which shows that I should stop eating whole fruit if I wanted to improve my insulin sensitivity? Like, where is that research? Because they're not going to find it.
Thank you. And Richard says, as a follow-up question, I already lost 150 pounds and got healthy with a plant-based diet. I still like challenging myself. What do you think about the Fruitarian diet? Is it a good thing to try for just a few days? Okay, so Fruitarian, that word could mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. So if he's asking, I'm going to rephrase the question. Like, I think he's asking, can I do a fruit-based diet for just a few days? The answer is absolutely yes. That would be fun. I would encourage you to focus on calorie density. So I'm going to share my screen real quick, and I want to show people this page. Can you see my screen, Chef AJ, where it says fruits? Okay. So this is an article on our website, and you can just Google Mastering Diabetes, High Carb Foods, and you'll find this article. And the point I want to make here is, if you are going to try and eat a large quantity of fruit in order for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and this applies whether it's fruit or not. I just want to make this point in general. When you're following a plant-based diet, you've got to learn how to focus on calorie-rich plant-based foods. If you only focus on greens and tomatoes and cucumbers and zucchinis, and you eat a bunch of salads, you're not going to be satisfied. If you're watching Chef AJ channel, you're seeing her making recipes. It's potatoes left, right, and center. Okay? There's beans, there's rice. You have to eat calorie-dense green light foods. And that's why when I gave you that green light list, I listed foods that contain a lot of energy, foods that contain a lot of calories first. Okay, so that was fruits, that was then starchy vegetables, and legumes, intact whole grains. Those are listed before you get into things like greens and non-starchy vegetables. So the point is, if you're going to eat fruit for a few days and try and be satisfied, you want to focus on the foods that are at the top of this list. This list is in the order
of calorie density, calories per pound. Mamie sapote is one of the most calorie dense foods on the planet. Plantains are a great fruit to eat. You can bake them. You can wait till they get like they look in this picture. They get a little bit black, a little bit soft, and you can eat them raw. Persimmons aren't in season right now, but that's a great calorie dense fruit. Breadfruit, custard apple, not that easy to get. You don't eat that much passion fruit. Jackfruit's a great fruit to eat. Bananas are very good. Pomegranate's good. We'll talk about sapodilla later. Figs are just coming into season right now. Grapes. But as you can see, we're starting to get our calorie density cut in half. Grapes are literally half as calorie dense as mamie sapote. And so if you try and eat a bunch of oranges at 286 calories per pound, you're not going to be satisfied. You're going to be hungry. And you're going to be like, wow, this doesn't work. Same thing with cherries, same thing with kiwi. You can't just eat mango all day. It's just not enough calories per pound. So this is a great resource to learn which fruits you'd want to focus on in that case. But then if we go look at these other foods, starchy vegetables, the taro, the yams, the russet potatoes, the corn, look at these are over 400 calories per pound. These are foods that are going to keep you satisfied. Same things when it comes to the beans. All right. Chickpeas are one of the more higher calorie dense plant-based foods. Pinto beans, pink beans, small white beans, navy beans. This stuff's going to keep you satisfied. But back to the original question. Yes, a fruit-based diet for a few days. Go for it.
Right. It's amazing to me that there are, that some fruits are higher in caloric density than some starches. Like, for example, butternut squashes, those kind of squashes have a lower caloric density than fruit. But
They
some
do.
fruits are much
Absolutely.
lower.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. But fruit really ranges because, think about it, like zucchini, eggplant, tomato, bell pepper, cucumber, okra, they're actually fruit. They're like 7 calories a pound.
Right.
So fruit, it's interesting because there is a question from Stacy. Robby, tell us why you love mamie so much.
Mamie sapote? I'll tell you why. Okay. I thought I had one with me. I do have one somewhere around here, but
that's why you moved to Florida, because you couldn't get the shipping to California.
Unfortunately, certain fruits can't be shipped into California, but that wasn't the only reason I moved, but we'll call it one of them, Chef AJ. The fruit here is spectacular, and it's worth it to invest. So there's a company called Miami Fruit. They are the best company to order fruit from. And if you want to, you can enter the code Mastering Diabetes and you'll save 5%. But we highly recommend that. And they do ship mamie to most places around the country. Now let's talk about mamie sapote. Let me go pull up a picture just so people can see and we can have a visual game here. Images. I'm going to share my screen again. It really, it's like nature's sweet, like raw sweet potato, essentially. Okay. And I'm glad these pictures, they came up with something really cool, which I wanted to show you. There's this company called El Sambrador. Okay. They sell frozen mamie. And if you go to look, even Target has it. Look at that's fantastic. So if you want to try mamie, put it in a smoothie and experience this incredible flavor, that's an option for you. You could order from this company. And I've seen this at a lot of different grocery stores. I think Publix has it in Florida. I'm sure there's other stores around the country, but it's very, very satisfying. And like you were saying, Chef AJ, I mean, I know you talk about calorie density so much. I know your audience understands this. We don't have to go into too much detail, but this is part of what makes a food satisfying. Is that if it's in the appropriate calorie density range, and mamie sapote is right there. So I think it's a little bit more calorie dense than a potato. I'm just gonna look at a potato real quick.
What does it taste like, Robby? Could you describe the taste?
It tastes like heaven. There's a little hint of vanilla. But let's see what this thing says here. I honestly can't describe it. That's what I'm trying to Google for you guys, because it is so good. It's so satisfying and rich. It's very, very dense, calorie dense, as I'm telling you. This thing says the flavor is comparable to a sweet potato mixed with pumpkin pie and has a texture similar to an avocado.
Oh my God, I gotta try it.
You really do. I gotta find a way to get you.
But you're saying you can't get it in California anymore.
Apparently not, but you know what? We'll see if we can play a little trick and get you some, Chef AJ.
Wow, I can't even imagine. There's a question from Dina about your glucose monitor. She says, how does it pick up continuously? How does it test your blood all day? How did it work?
Okay, so continuous glucose monitors, it's brilliant technology. You got to hand it to the inventors. It's measuring interstitial fluid. So it's this little pliable needle that you don't really feel it when it's. I don't feel that it's on me right now. It's on my stomach. I don't feel it there. It goes in. It's flexible. It moves with you, and this is measuring interstitial fluid. And these scientists have somehow figured out how to figure out what that means for your actual blood glucose level. And it's technically about 15 minutes late. So whatever reading it says right now, was that number about 15 minutes ago. But what's important about continuous glucose monitors is the trend. It is telling you now know, is it going straight up? You have a double arrow up, or is it a single arrow up? Or you could have a sideways arrow, like up and to the right, or it could be flat, or it could be the same numbers going down, 1 down, 2 down. So you have these different pieces of information. Before CGMs, if you prick yourself, you weren't really sure, is it going up? Is it going down? And how fast was it going up or down? That is the true insight and help when it comes to managing insulin-dependent diabetes, and where the CGM makes the biggest difference is that prediction of what's happening. Where's it going? But the exact technology and how they're actually doing it, Chef AJ, that's beyond me. It's just a pretty simple device. These may make it very easy to enter. And then it's via Bluetooth. The transmitter is communicating with your mobile device, which in my case, my phone talks to my Apple Watch, and I can see my blood glucose. So
that's
it's kind of fun.
Are most diabetics using them these days instead of doing the pricks?
The challenge is that they're not very affordable yet. So I wouldn't say a large percent of people are using them yet. It's heading in that direction, but it's becoming more and more popular.
And is it something you wear? How big is it? I'm just curious. It sounds amazing.
Let me see if I can get a good pic, because it's not going to work here.
Does Cyrus wear one too?
Cyrus, see, I love the fact that we get to talk about this, because everybody's different and everybody's unique. And Cyrus chooses not to wear one, which is totally cool. Like, everybody should feel safe in choosing whichever version they want. Cyrus doesn't, his joke is, I don't check the stock market every 5 minutes. So some people, it's too much data. Some people just don't want that much data. And that's respectable. There are ways to, everybody's situation is different. Some people might really benefit from it, especially if they're having, scary lows at night. Their partner might want them to invest in something like this to sort of have it. It basically will beep at you. It's proactive. If you're going low at night, it'll beep at you. If you're going high at night, it'll beep at you.
And it will wake you up. It would be a loud enough beep to wake you up.
Absolutely. And if it's not loud enough, then we can teach you to put your phone inside a jar, and you can put it inside the jar so it makes the noise louder. You can change the alarms to be like a fire alarm. Yeah, let me see if I can get a good picture here. Images.
I knew a gentleman that was a type 1 diabetic who wore one, and he actually, he was telling me.
So here we go. I wear a Dexcom G6. You see this picture right here? This is a good, let's see if I can make it bigger. That's the pliable thing that goes inside you. Okay.
Who puts it in? Do you put it in yourself?
Yeah, you put it in right here. This device, you click that orange button, and boom, it just pops it in you.
And you can shower in it and everything?
Absolutely. Shower, swim, all that stuff.
And you actually insert it in yourself. The doctor doesn't do this. No.
You just hit the button on that, and you insert this every 10 days. Every 10 days, you have to put in a new one, because there's a certain solution that they put on this needle, and that solution doesn't really work perfectly for too long. You can extend it, but Dexcom does not recommend you do that because it can lose accuracy. But that's how it works.
That is amazing.
Yeah, that is fun.
So Laura asked, so we can eat all the ice cream we want and daily?
Okay. So Nice cream refers to frozen fruit that has been processed through maybe a food processor, maybe a Vitamix, maybe a Yonanas machine. I have a Yonanas machine and I love it. And the answer is yes. If you take bananas and you combine that with some blueberries or some strawberries and you make, some strawberry ice cream, or even if you freeze mamie and you make some ice cream out of your mamie, you freeze mangoes. These are foods that are in the green light category. These are foods that fit inside that calorie density recommendation where we're saying, in Chef AJ's case, don't eat anything above, if it's above 600 calories per pound, you start to become cognizant of like how much you're consuming. But like all these fruits that I just showed you, every single one of them was less than 600 calories per pound, meaning that you can go to town. And it's so difficult to overeat. It's so difficult to eat too much because of the water and the fiber of these fruits. And so that's why you're welcome to, like, we are all about abundance here, Chef AJ. I know you are as well. And, you're going to hear our team talk about this all week. You're going to have some of our coaches on here. We don't want people limiting their food consumption of green light foods.
Right. I just think I know you love the way you eat, but like you never had a chance to really eat starch because you went from standard American to keto vegan to this, like you never had the opportunity.
Yeah. Hey, maybe you never know, down the road, anything can happen, but I'm at peace with.
You love your food. Now I've been with you and I know how much you eat and I know how much you love it. I wish I loved fruit as much as I love potatoes. I find it too sweet. That's my problem with fruit.
And thank goodness that there are so many options that you get to eat all those potatoes and get these extraordinary results. And it's the same thing in our coaching program. After seeing thousands and thousands of people go through our program and read our book, I will tell you, Chef AJ, I have personally been surprised at how few people really want to do what I do. Which is, the starch is where it's at. Like people, like they want starch-based breakfast meals, lunch, dinners, and we provide those recipes. We have like a weekly meal plan product, and we have plenty of starch-based breakfast meals. And you could do a fruit-based breakfast meal. It doesn't matter. The point is you're eating green light foods and you're reversing insulin resistance.
Yeah. No, I do have your meal plan. It's really good. I was going to show one of the recipes I like. And, the thing that's so cool about the way you eat, because both of us eat low fat, you eat more, I think, in terms of pounds. Like I think even Barbara Rolls would be like impressed. I think something like 14 pounds of food a day.
Yeah. It's roughly about like 13 pounds of edible food per day, which not recommending other people do that. Do what you enjoy. Like that's what we are so passionate about here at Mastering Diabetes. And, it's the reason I left Forks Over Knives. I had such a great time working there for 6 years, helping, Brian Wendell build that up and they continuing to grow and be so amazing. I guess I love Forks Over Knives, but like when I left and Cyrus and I decided to join forces, it was to create something that didn't exist. If you live with diabetes and you want coaching and you want support from people who really understand the ins and outs, there was not one place to go. There wasn't one book. There wasn't one website destination. There was good things out there. Okay. Barnard's doing good work. There's some other books out there, but nobody was saying we are focused on serving people with diabetes. And that's what we do. And there is a broad range. There's a lot of different ways that you can do this. And that's what we want to support people through. And you teach people eat on average about 5 pounds of food per day, 3 to 5. Okay. And so over time, my stomach has expanded. I can handle larger volumes. And personally, I just enjoy it because I love the hydrating aspect of the food that I eat. And my body certainly adapted to large quantities of fiber. But when people look at a meal I'm eating and they say, wow, that's just such a large meal. That's so much food. I always like to educate them. No. That's a lot of water. Lettuce is 95% water by mass. Even bananas are 75% water by mass. So if I'm eating these meals and that's a more calorie dense food. So all the other foods are going to be higher. Like stone fruit's going to be like in the 80s or something like that. Watermelon's like 95%. Tomatoes are, I think, 94%. Like it's literally the purest form of water you can consume is in whole foods. And that's important. Like the water content, this is important in Barbara Rolls' teaching. It's important in overall health. It's an important teaching that I know Jeff Novick certainly taught me over the years, and we all learned a lot from him. But how when you're cooking pasta and you're cooking it in the water, that water is getting reabsorbed in the pasta and sort of evening out the calorie density to a certain extent. So like, and meals like having soups, stuff like that. This is all some of the teaching. I know you had John McDougall on this program, his teaching in his Maximum Weight Loss book, like finding ways to increase that water content in your meals is going to help you achieve your goals faster.
Yeah, that's incredible. And, Dr. Doug Graham is going to have his own week on this show in July, and he doesn't have diabetes, and he basically eats like you.
That's fantastic. Doug's going to be on all in 7 days in a row.
Yeah, well, it's 5 because he wanted to pick the people himself, and so he's going to have almost a whole week in July.
That's fantastic. I'm going to tune into that.
Well, yeah, it's been. Did Gabriel Cousins ever learn about what you guys are teaching? Is he really stuck on it?
That's a good. I mean, I've never communicated with him, so I have never personally interacted with Dr. Cousins. I don't know if he's heard about us.
Was he only doing that for people with diabetes? Because I know that, like at Hippocrates, Brian Clement doesn't allow fruit, and to me, like a life without fruit is just sad.
That is very sad. I agree. I think his protocols are for more than just diabetes. But that was the information I had personally dug into many, many years ago. I don't know what he's doing now. It's been a long time.
Yeah. Well, that's so cool. Hey, Dina says, would it ever be beneficial for a non-diabetic person to use the continuous monitor to see what foods may trigger insulin resistance symptoms that a person may not know of otherwise?
I'm so glad you asked this question. And I personally think the answer is no. I think if you're not living with diabetes, I don't think it's smart to wear a CGM. Number one, they're not like that accurate. They're not like pinpoint accurate. Like if it says 130 on the Dexcom, you could be 110, you could be 150. There's a range here. Like there's a range. So it's to like get nitpicky on these numbers. If you don't have diabetes and you're not using medications and you're not like injecting insulin, I think it's a poor use of resources, and can be more confusing than helpful. I think if they're if you don't have diabetes, you want to keep it that way and live a life where you don't have to micromanage your health. Just eat the foods you love, eat the meals you love, and go live your life. Enjoy, like have confidence in what you're doing based on reading a lot of research and what the long-term societies have done. Micromanaging, I just don't recommend it. And this whole concept of like, a pineapple might spike me a little too high, so I'm not going to eat pineapple. It's silly. Like this is a short-term situation where your blood glucose might go a little bit higher because of the pineapple and then come back down. This is all fear-mongering that is coming from the low carbohydrate community, which is making people believe they should have a flatline blood glucose all day long and that these elevations are a problem. They are not a problem. Minor elevations, whether it's a little bit higher or a little bit lower based on certain foods, is within normal human physiology. And you want to take a look at a bigger picture here. And I just do not recommend people getting in the game of micromanaging blood glucose without diabetes.
Yeah, it's like people that weigh themselves every day. It's ridiculous.
Ridiculous.
Even if you don't have diabetes, I really recommend you read this book because it'll teach you what to eat for just health and definitely to prevent diabetes. And also the Mastering Diabetes meal plan is excellent, whether you have diabetes or not. These are just a few recipes I printed out to try. A pressure cooker pulled jackfruit that sounded amazing. A date walnut millet porridge. I won't add the walnuts, but I love that you use millet, a broccoli and mushroom fried rice. It's a really wonderful meal plan. That's something you can check out whether you're diabetic or not. So here's a very poignant question from Deb. In your opinion, is it ever too late to reverse diabetes?
Okay, I love this question. And it's a very important one. So in our book, if you get a chance to read it, which I hope you do, and thank you, Chef AJ, for plugging it and sharing the weekly meal plan. We're super proud of that, and continuing to provide recipes that people love and make this enjoyable. But it is possible to live with what is called insulin-dependent type 2 diabetes. Okay, so if you have insulin-dependent type 2 diabetes, it means you have been living with type 2 for so long that your pancreas is exhausted. Your beta cells are not functioning to their full capacity. And even when you optimize your health to the best way you possibly can, we can't guarantee that your beta cell population is going to increase. So it's the beta cells inside your pancreas that produce insulin. So those living with type 1 and type 1.5, there is auto antibodies present that are impairing insulin production. We don't know how to stop those antibodies from doing what they're doing. We don't know how to repair that. So that's out of the question. We don't have an answer yet. We're working on it. We don't have an answer. Okay. Now, pre-diabetes, that you can reverse. And I'm going to say 100% of cases, 99.9%. Okay. And that's because if you're living with pre-diabetes, you've caught it early enough. Okay. You're having an elevated A1C in that situation because you're living with insulin resistance. That is absolutely the cause. Your insulin resistance is a prerequisite for pre-diabetes. And then pre-diabetes is a prerequisite for type 2 diabetes. But pre-diabetes you can take care of. Type 2 diabetes, in the vast majority of cases, can be reversed. Sometimes it takes longer. You might need to lose a larger chunk of weight than some other people. Not everybody's journey is the exact same. Some people, we've seen type 2 diabetes disappear in weeks, like literally, like just your requirement for medications, fasting blood glucose just goes away like rapidly, very quickly. And then over time, the A1C drops, then boom, you're non-diabetic range. Some people, it could take 6 months. You have to lose a considerable amount of weight. And what you're going to focus on in that situation is the entire purpose of your lifestyle changes, the foods you're eating, the movement that you're doing, is to optimize the function of insulin in your body. Whatever amount that your pancreas is still able to secrete after living with type 2 diabetes for an extended period of time, whatever amount that is, if you become more and more insulin sensitive, that amount will be enough to manage your blood glucose without any added medications and get your A1C to 5.6% or lower. That's when you have become non-diabetic, when you're not using any medications, no more metformin, no more glimepiride, no more Ozempic, no insulin, no Trulicity. These meds are gone, and your A1C is 5.6% or lower. That's when you've put yourself into a non-diabetic area. It's a game of semantics. You can say you reverse type 2 diabetes. You can say your type 2 diabetes is in remission. Whatever sits well with you, it doesn't matter. The point is you've become insulin sensitive. You've taken control of your health, and you have now reduced your long-term chronic disease risk big time by truly, truly being in charge of your diabetes health.
Right. But a 1 or a 1.5, not reversible, right?
We do not have a solution for that right now. We don't. But I'm never going to say never, Chef AJ. You know, if you look back at history, with the smartest people in the world at any given time, there were certain problems we couldn't solve. And somehow, some way, we figured it out. So, you know, I got a lot of hope. And I think being insulin sensitive is important. Let's lay the foundation. That's what Cyrus and I are doing, and all of our fellow type 1s, type 1.5s, insulin dependent type 2. That's going to be an essential component here. But one day, Chef AJ, we're going to figure out how to get those beta cells to regenerate.
How's your brother doing, by the way? Does he follow the same eating style that you do?
You know, I texted my brother to wish him a happy Father's Day. He's got this cute little nephew. And I love seeing him when I can. And overall, dude's living a great life. Very happy. I'm happy for him and my sister-in-law, and they're just wonderful people. I personally, I got to tell you, I don't like dig into other people's health. I don't ask. You know what I mean? I don't know. I don't know what his A1C is. I don't know how much insulin he's using. I just don't know. It's not my job. If somebody wants help or guidance, then I'm obviously here to support any way I can. But the honest answer is I don't know.
But he must know about you and your work, right?
For sure. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Wow.
I mean, I don't know. Yeah. So I don't get in people's business, Chef AJ.
I wish I could be more like you, Robby. You're amazing. Nancy says, does fresh mamie sapote store well? I'm curious to know before I get a whole box, and thanks, Robby, for providing us with a code.
Okay, good question. Once it's ripe, I would imagine Let me get one real quick. Hold on. I got my over here. One second.
Nice.
So this is a ripe one. All right. And it's wrinkly. Okay. And has a flat bottom. See that flat bottom? Let's see if I can get that on camera right.
It almost looks like a giant walnut.
Yeah. So like when it's sitting on the counter, it gets a flat bottom. Okay. That's when you know it's ripe. If I put this in the fridge, I imagine this ripe one would probably last for like 7 days. That's what I would imagine. But you know what? You should really ask the Miami fruit people when you make the order. They have great customer service. They'll help you out. You can freeze it. You could cut it open and you could freeze it. Why don't we have some fun? Whoops, we'll just show people. Look, this thing. Let's hope this is a good one. Yeah. And sometimes you get like a little black part on the inside. That's okay.
It almost looks like a papaya.
Yeah, just cut around the black part, okay? And if we're gonna do a fruit show and tell, I have to show everybody this fruit, okay? This is called star apple. The season just ended, but look at that fruit. That is
art.
That's also known as kaimito. Okay. And I just brought a bunch of fruits just to show people, Chef AJ. How about dragon fruit?
That's beautiful.
I love dragon fruit. Okay, what other questions are coming in?
Okay, well, I'll look for some more questions, but I want to say something that I really appreciated about your books. One of you and Cyrus are like, even though you're both younger, you're like my big brothers, because when people attack me because I don't eat nuts and they say it's so dangerous, or I tell people like oats and fruit are more like cake, you actually wrote about this in your book on page 22, and I love it. And again, like you say, everybody's different, and I always say do the least restrictive program you can do that gets you the results you seek. And so if eating oatmeal with sweet fruit every morning is not causing you to have cravings and you're at a weight you like, it's a perfectly healthy breakfast. But for a lot of people, oats are like a trigger food. And you wrote something really interesting in it, which I think could maybe explain it. You wrote, we have found that eating oatmeal can cause unwanted blood glucose elevations in people living with a medium, high, or very high level of baseline insulin resistance. The presence of intact whole grains also delays the rate at which glucose enters your blood, which protects against unwanted blood glucose deviations when you're living with high levels of insulin resistance. And I tell people, eat the oat groat, don't eat the rolled oat. It's better.
So AJ, that's why we love you so much. That's why we're so happy to be doing this work together, because it's so simple. It's so logical, but people aren't really doing it. They kind of need that support, that guidance, the reminders. They need the recipes that you're providing consistently. Eat the most unrefined foods you can to get the best results. And oat groats, that's the way to go. And like you said, that sentence was every sentence in that book, we poured over it and tried to make it as clear as possible. That's for people who are mostly living with a medium or high level of insulin resistance. So we have a little quiz in there. We have a quiz on our website if you want to take it and see how insulin resistant you are. But some people who don't have insulin resistance, maybe they're an endurance athlete of something, I don't think Rich Roll is probably struggling with eating some oats in his diet, like it's going to be different and personalized, but a lot of the people that you and I work with, they are living with medium or high level of insulin resistance. So let's optimize this.
Yeah, great. Linda says, I highly recommend their small group coaching with Mastering Diabetes. I did it. And now I've had 2 A1C tests at 5.4. It's so worthwhile. Thank you.
That's fantastic. Linda, that's wonderful. I think I know exactly who that is. And I believe she's
a type 1.
Okay. Wonderful. That's fantastic.
Okay. Here's a funny question. Christissa says, your omega-3 index is better than Cyrus's. What's your secret? Cyrus did show us all the numbers yesterday.
That's funny. I don't think there's any secret. I don't even remember exactly how far apart they were. I think the bottom line is you want to get in that range of being good and healthy. And I wouldn't make it a competition. I wouldn't worry about trying to tweak numbers. And again, this is like, I'm not just saying that to be like politically correct or something, Chef AJ. Like this is a core teaching of what I believe, and a lot of these leaders that we have learned from, people like Matt Letterman and Alona Polday, who were the doctors in Forks Over Knives and wrote some New York Times bestselling books over there, but the Forks Over Knives plan primarily. But this idea of not micromanaging numbers I cannot say that enough. Like, it just doesn't matter. Like, it's just, there's a certain point where you get to a range of like, you're good, you're within a healthy spot. Like, don't focus on it. I'm not going to go try and like make this little tweak or that little tweak to try and optimize my number by a small percentage of some sort. So really, you just gotta focus on the bigger picture. Don't get lost in small numbers. And also, Chef AJ, when you really look into this stuff and you really like get deep into it, like how the reference numbers are established, how we even got there becomes like a little bit murky in some of these cases, so like the real deep nuances of like numbers and health, it's focus on the bigger picture, the overall, what you can do to reduce your like long-term, like the actual outcomes. That stuff matters more than numbers.
Right. And people don't realize you eat a lot of fruit, but you also eat a lot of vegetables and a lot of greens, right?
Yeah. And so the core teaching point is about improving your EPA, DHA status is, again, not about different numbers between me and Cyrus or anything like that, but it's about the principles that we both do, which is that our omega-6 to omega-3 ratio is dialed in. And that's because we are both very consistent with our dietary approach. There's no big deviations here, okay? And there's other components here. There's other components to what optimizes your body's ability to convert ALA into EPA and DHA. And sleep's going to be a part of that. Your movement's going to be a part of that. The amount of alcohol you consume is going to be a part of that. So there's a list of things you can do. And we both are good friends here with Rick Dina and Dr. Karen Dina, Dr. Rick and Karen. And they go deep on that topic, and they're true experts when it comes to that. And if anybody here is listening and curious about getting their omega-3 test done, I think it's essential and worth every penny to do a consultation with Dr. Rick and Dr. Karen so you can get a proper interpretation, because the company that you're getting the test from doesn't fully understand how to interpret the results of people following a low-fat, plant-based whole food diet.
Right. Yeah. Great. Yeah. They've both been on the show a few times. So Deb says, can you eat too much of any one thing, even though you eat everything in the green category? You can eat everything, no limits, as long as it's in the green.
Okay. So is it possible, let's say somebody decided I am only going to eat potatoes. That's literally the only thing I will eat. Like, could that maybe long-term potentially be a problem? I guess maybe. I mean, look at, and Andrew from SpudFit, I mean, he did it for like a year. I'm sure you could make an argument that like, look, after years and years of eating only one food, even if you ate different varieties of that one food, that's probably not ideal. So of course you have this spectrum of like, okay, one food forever, or I ate like a really big variety of these foods. Our friend Simon Hill from Plant Proof and Dr. Will Bolskowitz, who wrote the book Fiber Fueled, like that's a wonderful group of leaders who are teaching people this idea of eating, 40 different plants within a week. Let's say, so that would be like the other end of the spectrum of like going from one food to eating a solid variety. Like somewhere in between is probably going to be just fine. You look at Dr. Will Bolskowitz's work, like his research of showing that, having a variety is a great indicator of, your health and how you promote really great gut health. And we're learning more and more about that. So if you had to lean towards one direction, I'd probably lean towards trying to get some more variety. But again, I can't say it enough, Chef AJ. You just say the same thing. Like, we want to keep this simple. We want to keep this doable. We want you to be able to maintain this long term. And this idea of having to chase different foods and chase different nutrients, and I got to have this food for this amino acid and this food for selenium and this food for calcium, it gets a little ridiculous. And it's really unnecessary. You didn't worry about these things when you were following the standard American diet, and now you're eating super healthy and people are getting anxiety about individual nutrients. I wouldn't get lost in it.
Great. I just saw a nice comment. There's so many, you guys just are lighting up the chat, you guys. Somebody wrote a really nice comment. Sherry says, I don't have diabetes, but I bought the book and loved it. I passed it on to my brother-in-law who's a type 1 diabetic and he's improving. That's fantastic.
That's wonderful.
And Sherry says, can you ask Robbie, how worried should you be about spikes as a diabetic that are not within range?
Okay. Can you ask this person what type of diabetes they're living with? Can
Yeah,
they write in
Sherry,
the
if
chat
you
box?
wouldn't mind posting that, that would be wonderful. We can follow up on that.
For sure.
Let's see. There's a lot of stuff here. Oh, there's a question if you can talk about Amla and the benefits.
Yes. Okay. So Amla, also known as Indian gooseberries, is literally the most antioxidant rich whole food on the planet. So you go to the ORAC scale, there's no whole food. Like it's actually a berry. Let me share my screen. Hold on one second. Go to Indian gooseberry. Okay, share screen. And this is what a gooseberry looks like. Okay, like it's an actual fruit. And the problem is that it tastes terrible. It's incredibly sour. It's like putting like soap plus acid in your mouth or something. And it's difficult to eat. That's why it's not a popularized berry. But the medicinal benefits are incredible. So watch this. 12 benefits Amla green Cyrus. So as you guys saw yesterday on the program, my co-founder here at Mastering Diabetes, Cyrus, he is like the scientific guru behind this tea that we have created. And the actual research, the scientific research on Indian gooseberries is absolutely mind-boggling. So this article is really, really helpful. And we actually learned about this through some videos where Dr. Greger was showing that this substance, Amla, performed better than diabetes oral medications. So it's unbelievable. I'm seeing if I can find a picture of the graph. There's like this amazing graph. I don't have it with me here, but the point is, this is a medicinal food that has been studied extensively, and it tastes terrible. So what we did is we put it into a tea. So if you are a tea drinker, our position is you should have Amla. Like if you drink tea on a daily basis, you might as well include this powerful food that has a lot of antioxidants and a lot of medicinal benefits. We have seen people report that it lowered their blood pressure, lowered their cholesterol, lowered their triglycerides. And we initially started asking people to use this for sometimes there are clients who do everything really well and things just aren't budging the way we expect it to budge. And we add this and it makes a big difference. So there's a hibiscus version that is caffeine free. If you drink green tea and you are okay with the caffeine in that, then there's a regular version. Then there's a version that's decaf. But honestly, like this is a great coffee replacement. So if you're trying to,
Robbie, is it a powder or how does it come?
Yes. So let's find this picture right here. Yes, it's a powder. And what we encourage you to do is you could put it in a smoothie. You could drink it as a tea. Oh, the image didn't work.
And how much do you use? And does it dissolve in cold water or only hot water? I just got green tea now that they have a decaf version of sencha.
Oh yeah, you're drinking a decaf green tea?
Yeah, I had the lady on the show and she sent me a sample and it didn't make my heart go up. It was decaffeinated water process and it was delicious. It's Say Me and I'm actually drinking it now. It tastes okay.
That's amazing. Okay, yeah. So yeah, it's one tiny little scoop, okay? That is, and each bottle has, I don't know if these images are going to work. I don't know what's wrong with the image, but I think it's because I'm trying to click the Twitter icon, which is confusing everybody here. But it's a tiny, tiny scoop. And I think you end up getting like 5 grams, I believe, of Amla in the scoop. And then the research was showing the benefits at 1, 2, and 3 grams. So we kind of made it like an insurance policy just to make sure you got enough. So, and each container has there's like a 90 serving and a 30 serving container. So it lasts for a while. Once you open it, make sure to keep it in the fridge. That's the best thing to do. But yeah, it's powerful stuff. So we always make it clear. Amla is not going to change your life if you're not doing it with a plant-based diet. I mean, the research does show that there's benefit even if you're not, but we know that it's the combination of both. Okay. Don't expect this to be some medicine, some plant-based medicine that's going to solve your problems. You've got to address the root cause. The root cause of your problem is not like lack of Amla, but it can be super helpful to reverse some damage that may have developed over the years. And that's what the research is showing. So it's great. I drink hibiscus. The hibiscus version, I'll put like the powder in water. I'll put it in a smoothie. Sometimes I have like this other tea with like some rose hips and stuff like that. But I've noticed for me personally, it diminishes my dawn phenomenon. So if anybody hears this living with insulin-dependent diabetes, and you have that experience where when you wake up in the morning, your blood glucose starts to elevate. And that's because your body's getting ready for the day. Your liver's putting out some glucose to get you going. And because we're living with insulin-dependent diabetes, we don't have the insulin to compensate for what the liver is putting into our bloodstream. But for whatever reason, I mean, there's a lot that happens with this Amla stuff that nobody can even explain. Even the scientists, they don't understand how it's happening. They just know it is. For me, that dawn phenomenon becomes less pronounced, and I need less insulin to correct it than when I'm not consuming the Amla hibiscus consistently. So
that's interesting. What would the benefit be for somebody like me that didn't have diabetes?
I mean, for somebody like you, it's another source of antioxidants. I mean, your blood pressure is not high, your cholesterol is not high, so you're not really trying to fix any numbers. It would just, I mean, why? Let me ask you this. Why do you drink that tea that you're drinking?
Oh, because Sharon McRae said to. I mean, I don't know. It's just so much pressure. It's supposed to help with brain. I don't know. I don't need to drink it, but it's like a quarter teaspoon. You put it in water. It's very easy to do, basically.
Yeah. So there you go. I mean, I would say like we all know that antioxidants and doing everything you can with your lifestyle choices to make your immune system function as well as it can is a good decision. So if using Amla berries and getting them into your diet was only to try and put your immune system in the best position possible, that in and of itself would be worth it. Again, like if you're a tea drinker, I just like, why would you not? Why would you not just throw it in? Mix it in with other teas you have.
I like herbal tea and I like it iced. So
have we sent you some Amla? We got to send you some.
I've never tried it. I mean, it sounds amazing. I mean,
all right.
So if I like it, I'll tell everybody,
Perfect. We'll get you some.
Yeah. So Karen is asking if it comes in capsule form. Like, I guess people want to maybe take it so they don't taste it.
So we do not sell a capsule form. I'm sure you could find it if you Googled. So you could try that. And again, like we're not, however you want to get it in you and get the results, like go for it. If you want to get Amla from some other source, that's no problem on us. We want you to experience the results. We just put it into a tea to make it more palatable, to actually make it taste good, to sort of like build it as a lifestyle habit. And the teas have additional medicinal plants. Like the hibiscus has some cinnamon in there. Like there's some stuff that's beneficial.
That sounds good. Yeah, that sounds good. So Sherry wrote back and said she has a damaged pancreas, low C-peptide, no antibodies, so kind of type 1.5, but treated like a type 2 for the last 12 years. I'm not sure what this word is. Kaner got my A1C below 6.3 with insulin and metformin and Alma Green every day.
Okay.
So I forgot what her initial.
Yeah. So her original question was about spikes. And so, we have to, in that case, like, let's define like what is a spike. And I think that's the question. Our guideline would be do your best to consistently see post-meal readings that don't elevate above 180. That's a good, like, general guideline. If it goes up to, like, let's say it goes up to 160, 170, and then it comes back down, it's not the end of the world. Again, the expectation and what we're doing living with insulin-dependent diabetes is a different story than pre-diabetes and type 2. It's a different story. You have to be realistic with yourself, have some self-love, some compassion. Nobody's perfect. We have to understand that what we're doing as people living with insulin-dependent diabetes, we are manually trying to do what Chef AJ and a lot of listeners here, your pancreas does brilliantly. It is magical how well your your entire system decides to, utilize the proper amount of insulin to keep your blood glucose under control 24/7. It's not an easy task. So you got to have some compassion. And one of the key teaching points is to understand is the low carb community, which is majority of the diabetes community, is making you feel like it's so important to make sure that that blood glucose range is always low, always as close to 83 as possible. And these elevations are just going to cause all kinds of damage. And we don't see it that way. The mistake that's being made there is like people with diabetes. Okay, let's go low carbohydrate. Let's avoid potatoes. Let's avoid fruit, or let's minimize these foods to try and have less blood glucose fluctuation, because they're trying, it's with a good spirit. It's with a good intention. They're trying to avoid complications. They're trying to avoid, retinopathy, neuropathy, tingling in the hands and feet, stuff like that, by not having blood glucose elevations. But they're trading one problem for a lot of other problems. And that's the issue. So just because you got diagnosed with insulin-dependent diabetes does not mean that you now need different foods to nourish your heart, your kidney, your liver, your brain. Okay. So they're changing their entire approach to address this one little problem and not thinking about what it does to the overall, system, your entire body. And so the long story short here is, don't stress out about the elevations. Give yourself credit. Celebrate the fact that you are putting in the time and the effort to eat the world's healthiest foods, the potatoes, the fruit, the rice, the beans, and that those nutrients and the fiber content and that, water-rich diet, it's that's going to have the biggest impact on reducing your chronic disease risk, even more so than if your A1C is a little bit higher, or you're seeing a little bit of some elevations eating those foods. That's the thing here. We're not sitting here trying to sell you that you're going to have like the most perfect blood glucose management ever with insulin-dependent diabetes. It's not real. It's not the only way you could ever truly have like a truly flat, like 83 all day, would be a very, very low carbohydrate ketogenic diet and lots of intermittent fasting. But that benefit is not worth the risk. That's the key point. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, there actually was a question, and I asked it to Cyrus, but I can ask it to you. What do you think of intermittent fasting for people with diabetes?
Yeah, so that's a component of the Mastering Diabetes method. And it's part of our book. It's research that Cyrus did himself at UC Berkeley. He always jokes about how he said when he was doing that research in college, he would say, nobody's going to want to do this. Like, this is ridiculous. And then he's like, I'm the first one to say I was wrong. Everybody is just going crazy over not eating. Like, he's like, who's going to want to not eat? Like, that's ridiculous. But people love it. So intermittent fasting is simply a tool that you can use to reduce your calorie intake. It is a tool. And there's different ways to do it, whether you're going to do 16/8, whether you're going to do a 24-hour fast once a week. There's just a lot of different ways to do intermittent fasting. But the whole point is calorie restriction, essentially, in a way that still allows you to live an abundant life. So it's a tool. It's absolutely a tool. I personally I don't necessarily intermittent fast, but I try and eat my dinner quite early. So there's a pretty big gap between finishing my dinner meal and eating my breakfast meal. But again, it's primarily, I think, a tool for in this context for people who have a lot of weight to lose and want to speed up their progress in reversing insulin resistance. But I will also say it's not required. It's optional. It's an optional tool. Some people would much rather, they don't resonate with it. Some people like, I don't want to not skip meals, or I don't want to reduce my eating window. It feels restrictive to me. I'd rather eat, and that's fine. Do you intermittent fast, Chef AJ?
Well, I guess I do, because I've never eaten breakfast my entire life. So I didn't know there was a word for it until a few years ago.
That's fantastic.
So I guess I do. I'm just not hungry in the morning. Even if I don't eat dinner the night before, I don't know.
Well, look at you. I mean, the research is quite strong. For those who do it properly, do it consistently. The research is there. So it's a wonderful tool. And again, it's shocking how many people enjoy it.
Yeah. So Adina says, I put the Amla powder in my oatmeal, 1 teaspoon, and my cholesterol numbers improved. And Linda wants to know, where can you get it?
Okay. So you can get the tea. It's on amlagreen.com. That's the best place. You can also buy it on Amazon. You can type in Amla Green into Amazon and they'll ship it to you very quickly. If you have Amazon Prime, you get it for free, the shipping. So that's the best resource. And I'm super glad to hear that she saw those results. It's awesome.
Yeah, because Dr. Greger has done some videos on the power of this.
He's done a lot of videos on the power of Amla.
I wonder if he takes it every day.
I hope he does.
Does he know about your brand?
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Oh my God. So we have so many great people coming on this week from the Mastering Diabetes team. Tomorrow we have Adam.
Yes. The legend, the one and only Adam Sud. What an amazing story. You do not want to miss that. Like, mark your calendar right now. You want to be there live. He's just a fantastic human being.
And he's one of your coaches, right?
He is. He is one of the coaches in our program.
Do you know, one of the things is, I mean, I know you have a program, but how does it work if somebody's interested? Is it virtual? Do they do modules? Maybe you could talk a little bit about what it is.
I'd love to. So if somebody's interested, the best thing you could do is go to masteringdiabetes.org/apply, and then you can apply for coaching. And the programs we have that I want to talk about today is we have private coaching and we have small group coaching. And there's really 3 tools involved in each one of these programs. So the first tool would be access to your coach. So if you're doing private coaching, you're going to work with your coach. You're going to have a call once per week for 30 minutes. And the whole purpose of that call is to decide, okay, what are we focusing on this week? What are we going to change? And we're adamant about avoiding overwhelm. Overwhelm and trying to do too much at once can be frustrating, especially when you end up falling backwards and you're just upset. So slow, steady, consistent changes that your coach guides you through is essential. Private coaching includes some text messaging as well with your coach as much as you want. We really want people to communicate, Chef AJ. The only way that our team can't help somebody is if they sort of go dark. If you're not willing to be honest and vulnerable and share, okay, this is something I struggle with, or I wanted to do this and it didn't go the way I wanted. Like, lifestyle change is not rainbows and unicorns. It's simple to understand. It's not easy to do. There's a lot of old habits that are being changed, and old habits die hard. Okay. So sometimes we gotta just be willing to take this one step at a time and be honest. So that's the communication with a private coach. For small group coaching, it's one of our favorite programs. When Cyrus and I first started Mastering Diabetes, that was all we were doing. We were providing strictly small group coaching, and it's very effective. So you join a call, you have a specific call at a specific time with you and your group. You're getting a little cohort, and it's about 8 people, no more than 8 people per coach. You get on Zoom once per week and you chat. And again, you're going to talk to your coach individually, and you're also going to learn from other people as they talk to your coach, your team here. Okay. And so that's the small group coaching aspect. And then each program, there's a members only Facebook group where we encourage people to participate, ask questions. Hey, I'm traveling to Denver. Has anybody been to a good restaurant in Denver? Like, what do you recommend? Or I'm going to this restaurant. Here's the menu. What would you order? Or, hey, I have a party to go to. They really want me to make a chocolate cake. That's what I made last year. Do you have a recommendation for an actually healthy chocolate cake? And then somebody will go and paste the Chef AJ recipe. You know what I'm saying, Chef AJ? So that's the Facebook group. Super helpful. We do live events in there. We do challenges amongst our community, maybe a certain recipe challenge of some sort, or like a fasting challenge or an exercise challenge. So those are fun. And then we also have an online course. So it's a place where you go and you watch videos about our method, about the changes we're asking you to make. And the whole purpose of that is to really give you, access to that material whenever you need it. But also when you're preparing for a call with your private coach, or you're preparing for one of the small group calls, if you watch the video on your own time, then you can come and show up and talk to the coach about things beyond the core teaching points. Like you just watched it on your own time, and now you can go a step further and really apply it into your life. When you're watching the videos and your coach is asking you to make a change, and you're communicating about it, that's when knowledge becomes action. Like that is when this stuff really begins to stick versus just being information that came in one ear and out the other. And so we're proud of what we do. We're coaches, sometimes you need a coach to push you and believe in you and take you to a place that you may or may not even believe you can get to. And our coaches do that. Our coaches lead by example. Everybody is very well credentialed, whether it's registered dietitians, certified diabetes educators, nurses, or people themselves who have literally just reversed type 2 diabetes, have a lot of health coaching experience. Whether that's people living with type 1 diabetes. I think you have Wendy, I believe, is coming on. Is she coming on this week? Okay, good. Guys, you don't want to miss Wendy. Wendy is just a champion. I love Wendy. She's a registered dietitian, certified diabetes educator, and she's living with type 1 diabetes. So we want our members to know that we're doing what we're preaching. Okay, we practice what we preach. We lead by example. We know what it's like to be in a lot of the places where our clients have been in, and we know that what the other side looks like. So if anybody's interested in learning more, you just go to masteringdiabetes.org.com/apply. We always like to reassure people. Sometimes people, they're skeptical, they don't really believe it. And we're like, look, whatever result you're trying to accomplish, you want to get that A1C in the non-diabetic range, you want to drop your diabetes meds, you want to drop your blood pressure meds, whatever it is, we're going to work with you until you accomplish it. And if you don't accomplish it, then we're going to keep working with you for free, essentially. Like that's our commitment. Like it's just, we refuse to let people fail. And I know I've had coaches in many areas of my life who've sort of helped me in that way and just really believed in me and helped me get certain things accomplished. And that's how we approach it. So it's kind of like a guaranteed success situation.
Hey, so Robby, Claudia says, could you take your Amla powder and put it in capsules yourself?
You could absolutely do that.
Nice.
That could be a convenient way to get it in. That works.
Nice. And Gina says, if you don't have diabetes, could the Amla powder cause your glucose levels to drop too low?
That would be I have not seen that. I've not seen that. I don't, that would be very rare.
Okay. And are there any plans for a retreat in Costa Rica again this year?
Okay. It's not going to happen in 2021. But I hope 2022. So there's no official plans, but we really do miss those events. I mean, you've done plenty of in-person events yourself, Chef AJ. You know how special it is. Zoom is great. All these platforms we can do this stuff live is wonderful, but there's really nothing that beats that in-person experience and, some hugs and going to the buffet. We have literally buffets where each ingredient is individual. We teach you how to make this super simple. So you'll have let's say it's breakfast, a whole tray of bananas, a whole tray of mangoes, a whole tray of papaya. There'll be some beans available. There'll be some steamed plantains. There'll be some butternut squash. And then we teach you how to add certain spices. And people come to our retreats, eat unlimited buffets of carbohydrate rich foods and see their blood glucose drop, their medication drop. We have people off blood pressure medications, and it's really in 4 days. It's incredible. We've had great doctors. Dr. Anthony Lim attended one of our retreats. We had Dr. Ron Weiss there. So it is just a lot of fun. We had Dr. Jim Loomis one year. So we always bring in a really fun medical doctor. So the answer is, I don't know, but hopefully 2022.
That's great. Richard says, can you talk about guava? He said it helped with his platelets.
Guava. Okay. So guava is a wonderful fruit. Let's pull it up so people can see it. And the thing is, you want to be on, spell it right. Guava, guava. I can't say I fully know all these amazing benefits that I think it was Richard was talking about, but it's a great fruit. You can also order it from Miami Fruit. It's something they offer, and it's a little crunchy. And these seeds, you can eat them. But it's a delicious fruit. So put it in the green light category. It's probably not going to be easy to eat like a ton of them in one sitting, but I highly recommend it. I have guavas here or there. It's not necessarily one of my favorites, but I do enjoy it. Do you like guava?
I only get them when I'm in Mexico. I don't think to really eat them so much when I'm in the United States, but they're very popular at a spa that I teach at called Rancho La Puerta, passion fruit and guava.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you eat any purslane, Robbie? Have you ever had purslane?
I have had purslane. It kind of grows like a weed in a lot of people's gardens, but yeah, it's very expensive at the farmer's market.
Really? Because here in the ethnic store, it's 4 for $1.
That's great.
Yeah, it's really cheap, really cheap.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. What do you use purslane for? What do you do with it?
I just put it in my salad. I just put,
okay.
I heard one of the doctors say it's high omega-3. And so, and people are saying, do you worry about that? Like to get enough greens for your omega-3s? Are you diversifying or eating particular grains that are higher in omega-3?
Good question. I'm glad people asked. The answer is no. I eat the greens that I enjoy, that I think taste amazing. And that's a lot of arugula. That's a lot of different varieties of lettuce. I like romaine. I like red leaf, green leaf. So I even like some iceberg here or there. I kind of like the crunch of it. And Jeff Novick has a great article about the nutritional benefits of iceberg lettuce. So yeah, lots of lettuce, I have some spinach. There's this product called Super Greens, from this company called Organic Girl. It has a mixture. I do enjoy kale. I like putting, some lemon juice in there and massaging it. That makes a really delicious salad. So I just eat what I love. I eat what I love. And,
arugula is particularly good with fruit.
It is. I eat a lot of arugula.
The bitter and the sweet, they make a great combo. Gina says, what about black cumin and amla powder? Is that too much for one day? Will it drive the number dangerously low?
Again, like I doubt it. But maybe check with your doctor if you're like extra concerned, and be safe. But I believe your body has the ability to regulate, and you should be just fine.
Great. Dina wants to know what percentage of non-diabetics generally attend your retreats?
Oh, that's a good question. Oftentimes we have partners come. So let's say somebody has diabetes, their partner doesn't, but they come as a couple. So in that case, maybe 20% or so. Anybody's welcome. I just will say that it is a retreat designed for people living with diabetes in the sense of the education that's provided. So like, what are we going to talk about in our lectures? That stuff, there's going to be a certain emphasis towards diabetes and diabetes numbers and management, but the food is going to work for everybody. The activities we do about going to the beach and playing sports and doing some yoga and activity, like that's going to work for everybody. So if somebody was, open to learning about diabetes and becoming an expert, even though that they might not be impacted by themselves, then they'd be welcome to come. And maybe somebody wants to prevent diabetes,
It sure sounds like fun.
Yeah, it is fun.
Yeah, that's great. So Tammy says, what is the omega-6 to 3 ratio we should strive for? And do you worry about having nuts at every meal to absorb the nutrients in your greens?
I love this question. This is a good one. So the ratio you're looking for is a maximum 4-to-1, closer to 1-to-1, anywhere in that range. So omega-6 could be as high as 4, and then the omega-3 side is 1, 4-to-1 there. You don't want to start going above that. That's going to start putting you in some risky territory again. So just so people understand, it's the same enzyme, delta-6 desaturase, that is responsible for converting the essential amino acid on the omega-6 side and the essential amino acid on the omega-3 side. It's the same enzyme that takes that essential amino acid and starts creating down the line everything you need to get the entire set. So on the omega-3 side, there's many conversions that end up leading to EPA and DHA at the end of the conversion process. If you're consuming too many omega-6 fatty acids, too much omega-6 in general, the enzyme's going to have to work very hard on the omega-6 side. And it's gonna have to prefer dealing with that conversion, and it's not gonna have enough left over to work on the omega-3 side. And that's where you get that limited creation of EPA and DHA. So that's why the ratio matters. And once you bring that down, then there's a balance. There's a balance, and then both sides have the conversions done properly. So I do not think about eating avocado or nuts and seeds or any high-fat foods to increase the absorption of essential fatty acids in any way, shape, or form, because when you look at that research, you can see how faulty it is. So in one case, there's one method that they used is they'll take a bunch of people, they will basically starve them. Okay, you ask them to literally not eat specific foods. Okay, so they come into the study in an unrealistic state of not having a bunch of nutrient-dense foods. Okay, and then they will test, okay, what happens at different levels of fat intake, whether it was oils or nuts and seeds or whatever, and say, okay, if there's more, does that change the absorption? And the answer is, in some of these studies, sure. Yeah, maybe it did, but it doesn't have a substantial or relevant impact on your life, because you don't actually come into a situation like that in a deficient state when you're just having a natural, healthy diet. And so it's misleading science. It's a problem that doesn't really actually exist. And you're much better focusing on doing the lifestyle habits that increase the conversion rate. Okay, that's where you really want to focus. And that main thing for the vast majority of people is focusing on consuming less omega-6 fatty acids. It's not about consuming more omega-3. That's another misleading thing. You have all these product labels. Just eat more omega-3, omega-3. That's not the problem. The problem is that you had too much omega-6. You got to solve the root problem. And then when you eat whole foods, there's this certain trust in nature and the design that's beyond our comprehension, that you're eating enough whole foods that are available where you live, that there's going to be this natural balance. I don't know what my omega-6 to omega-3 ratio was yesterday or the week before. I don't know. I know in general that the diet that I follow, the foods that I eat, land me in the proper ratio. And every once in a while, I can get an omega-3 test to just double check. But there's no micromanaging going on here.
No, it's like these people really worry about something. I've never been to a funeral where lack of nuts was the cause of death. And maybe they'll invent a continuous omega-3 fatty acid month.
Maybe. They'll make a lot of money.
That's funny. So Lori says, how does being borderline diabetic affect the organ systems of your body over time? Because there are so many people who are not diagnosed or living on the borderline.
Okay. So this is an important conversation, because what's really happening out there is there are a lot of people living with insulin resistance who haven't fully reached pre-diabetes yet. And so there are consequences to living with insulin resistance and living a lifestyle and doing habits that essentially make your body produce excess insulin. That's the first step. Okay, before we even talk about insulin resistance, before we talk about pre-diabetes, before we talk about type 2 diabetes, the first step is that your body will start producing excess insulin to essentially shove glucose into your cells. Okay, because insulin's primary function is to take blood glucose out of your cells, out of your bloodstream into your cells. So when you're insulin resistant, that process gets inhibited. All right. So your body's initial way to solve this problem is let's just produce more insulin and let's just jam it in there. Let's just jam it in there. And excess insulin is a problem. And so, one of my favorite stories of our coaching program is this woman, Tammy. She came in, she was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. She was using metformin. She had an A1C above 7. And she also had her fasting insulin level tested, and it was 17. You want you to keep your fasting insulin below 7. 17 is very high. It's dangerous. It's a bad sign. That's insulin resistance to the max, as clear as day. She starts following our program, and she ends up losing well over 50 pounds. She stops taking metformin. Her fasting insulin level goes down into the 5s. And this is the person now eating carbohydrate-rich foods, following our program: potatoes, oranges, bananas, mangoes, beans, rice. These are the foods she ate to reverse type 2 diabetes, to lower her insulin levels, and she reversed fatty liver disease. She had aches and pains in her knee. She wasn't able to move and be active. That went away. So it's this core message of everything we're talking about here, everything Chef AJ teaches, everything we're teaching is living a lifestyle to maximize your insulin sensitivity. So the original question here was like, well, if I have insulin resistance, I'm like borderline insulin resistant. Like, is this a problem? The answer is yes. You're increasing your risk for heart disease, cancer, Alzheimer's disease, high blood pressure, high cholesterol. Like, insulin resistance is the central node to these chronic conditions. And if you're sensing and you somehow know that you're already there, you're already seeing that you're borderline, it's time to turn it around. You want to be insulin sensitive, and you can do that very easily. And the sooner you make changes, the better.
That's great. Thank you. So I'll try not to keep you much longer. I see one more question from Dina. Is tofu better to eat with a salad, or is it okay to eat with rice and beans? I have not heard to avoid fats with starch if weight loss is wanted.
Okay. So for our program and for our purposes here of trying to help everybody maximize insulin sensitivity, I want to be clear that soy products in general are in the yellow light category. So that means we want you to be cognizant of how much you're consuming. It's not a food that you eat in unlimited quantities like the green light foods. And this is because all soy products are higher in fat. They're a naturally higher fat food. Edamame is the most whole form of soy that you can consume. That is the ideal version. That would be the best. Then you start moving into something like tempeh, which would be a next best option. Then tofu. Tofu is the much more processed version. Okay. It's high in fat. It's quite processed. So our guideline is to consume no more than 30 grams of fat per day, total 30 grams. When you start adding in tofu, it's going to be pretty easy to go above that limit. And you got to understand that bananas, potatoes, rice, lettuce, chard, quinoa, all these foods have fat. And you will be shocked at how much fat you will get by just eating whole foods. So on any given day, if I had zero added fat, I have zero nuts and seeds, zero avocado, zero soy products, no coconut meat, nothing, just eating whole foods, I will get above 20 grams of fat. I will get 20 grams of fat just from eating my mamie sapote, my bananas, my mangoes, my sapodilla, my kaimito, my dragon fruit, my lettuce, my bell peppers, my carrots, 20 grams of fat. So be careful when you're adding tofu to, I think the question was like rice and beans. Like I would just like try and focus on enjoying the rice and the beans and maybe try and like figure out a way to not really need the tofu. And if you're going to add some, you're going to add a very small amount and just be cognizant of how much fat you're getting per serving. We also have a teaching point of no more than 10 grams of fat per meal. So we don't want people to think, oh, they have this 30-gram fat guideline, so I'm just going to go eat like 25 grams of fat with my dinner meal and keep the other ones like absurdly low in fat. It's not going to work. That's not going to work. You're going to have a challenging time managing your blood glucose levels when you're having very high fat meals. It's going to impact you for not just 24 hours, 48 hours and beyond in a lot of cases when you're really having a huge dose of fat in one sitting. So short answer here. Yeah, you find like no problem. Like enjoy a little tofu with the rice and the beans and whatnot, but be cognizant of how much you're consuming and keep your overall fat intake low.
She says 1 ounce of tofu by weight on her salad is what she's saying she's having.
That's a tiny amount, so I wouldn't worry about it.
So don't worry about it. Well, Robby, this has been wonderful. You're just such a wealth of knowledge, both you and Cyrus. And I look forward to the next 5 days with some of your coaches that are, some of them are actually going to do cooking demos. And
yes.
And hopefully either you and or Cyrus will pop in maybe to introduce a few of the ones that I don't know, just to set the stage. Vicky saying such valuable information. People love you guys. So thanks, Robby, so much.
Thank you.
You are just such a force of good in the world, and I'm so proud to know you.
I appreciate that so much, Chef AJ. Thank you so much for putting this week on and just doing what you do. I mean, you are an icon. I believe you're in the Hall of Fame.
I guess right. I'm the OG, Vegan Hall of Fame.
You're a true OG, and it means a lot. So thank you for everything you do. Your consistency in providing education and resources and recipes and knowledge is like none other. So thank you.
And
keep
the
it up.
number one resource for diabetes is Mastering Diabetes. That's where you go if you have it, if you don't want it, or just if you want to live a healthy life. And check out their meal plan. Thank you so much, Robby.
Appreciate it.
All right. And thanks all of you for watching another episode of Chef AJ Live. Come back tomorrow for day 3 of the Mastering Diabetes week, when we are featuring one of their coaches who has an amazing story, Adam Sue. Bye, Robby.